new season is upon us, dear viewer, and it is time to visit the modiste. While this author favors the Featheringtons in both colors and behavior, let it known that I also know a thing or two about sewing. And I can assure you, without much time or effort, one can take a simple, historically adequate Regency gown and transform it into an ensemble that will wipe the smiles off of all of those insipid diamonds of the season. I mean, make you the talk of the town. Voila! Here is the offending fabric, the tulle, my second to least favorite fabric to work with ever. The first being polychiffon. Why? Well, you do commissions for dance costumes for like 7 years and you'll understand. At least it has embroidery on it and it's not pure tulle. You know, like the dudes that hit on you at the club. Okay, now I need somebody with the music mixing tools to meld pure moods with tulle music into one really weird combination. So I think I got 3 yards of this, and the majority of this is going to go to the skirt. So we're gonna cut that out first and then see how much fabric we have left over and make a decision on how the bodice is gonna look from there. Or not. Why, Jackie? Why? I made a little boo-boo and didn't account for the fact that the border was going to be on both sides of the fabric. Whoops. So now I don't have enough fabric to do what I originally planned, which was to cut out both sets of skirts and seam those together. But that's okay, because it's an open robe. The skirt doesn't have to reach as far as the gown skirt does. Instead, my plan is to just be as economical as possible in cutting out the bodice, cut off the top of the border, and then everything else will get applied for the skirt. We're using the same Laughing Moon pattern as the original gown with one slight modification. The front of the open robe will use the bodice lining piece instead of the bodice front piece, and we'll extend it out a few inches to meet in the center. It's also worth noting, gentle viewers, that when you're using this infernal embroidered tulle, you must avoid placing your pieces so the seam allowances cover the thick portion of the fabric, or you will weep into your tea when trying to sew it. This makes cutting economically a lot more challenging, but hey, who doesn't love a game of Tetris? The bodice front is looking a little sparse, but you can fix that by fussy cutting out some more of the embroidery and hand stitching it where you want it. Speaking of pizzazz, originally I was going to put rhinestones on this, gold rhinestones. These babies. But I put this on the dress form just to take a look at it and let it marinate in my head a little bit. And I can't believe that these words are about to come out of my mouth. My regular viewers, you may need to sit down if you're not already. I don't think it needs further embellishment. Yeah, I did just say that. I can't believe I did, but I did. The camera's not picking it up, but the tulle is actually kind of sparkly itself. It catches the light really nice. And there's a lot going on, especially with all of the stuff happening at the bottom on the border. I think it looks fine. So, you know, I'm not gonna go and spend hours and hours bedazzling this thing. I think it might actually detract from the simplicity. Instead of spending all the time to do that, I'm gonna go ahead and fix the center front of this bodice, which I've been meaning to do for 2 years now. With that decision made, we can finally assemble the open robe for reals. To do this, we're going to utilize French seams. Dun dun dun! I hate French seams. They're so inefficient. You have to sew 2 seams where you usually do 1, plus a bunch of extra steps in between. Not only that, but they're 100% counterintuitive, and unless you're very practiced, it's almost impossible to get right the first time. Add to that the fact that you have to trim down your seam allowances in the process, and you end up with a seam that is a nightmare to redo. Unfortunately, when you're making garments out of delicate fabrics or fabrics that are translucent, like tulle, it's pretty much the only way that you can get a neat finish. Yay. Okay, so first you have to place your fabric wrong sides together. Yes, wrong sides together. You're going to be sewing first on the right side. Iron your seam allowances to one side. You then trim it down to a scant 1/4 of an inch, but I didn't film that. Now fold the fabric along the seam so that right sides are together. Now you want to sew just on the other side of the seam allowance, creating a little pocket. The only good thing I can say about this process is that it's a heck of a lot easier to do this with see-through material like this tulle. This is what it looks like when it's finished. The raw edges are encased, in theory, and you'll just iron that again to one side and move on with your life. This author has made a total of 3 versions of this same gown already on this channel. Since repetition is duller than Cressida Cowper's conversation, we'll skip the basic bodice construction and move on to the skirt. First, hem the sides of the skirt. Figure out where you want the skirt to end. Then pleat! Pleat! Pleat for your life! My apologies. Wrong cosplay. Baste all of your pleats down and gird your loins. This next part is gonna hurt. French seams over thick Regency back pleats. Yippee-ki-yay, mother! Well, my friends, I have somehow misplaced this shoulder strap. I have no idea where it is. I took it off of the pattern piece, and in the back of my mind I was thinking, you're gonna lose this. Put it somewhere that you were gonna remember it, and I didn't. I have been really reluctant to cut another piece out because there's only one direction that I can cut out the shoulder straps on the tulle. It stretches one direction. It has to be completely ungrained for it not to stretch, and we can't have it stretch on the shoulder. Not only that, but I don't want to cut it so that the rosettes are on the seam anywhere because they're super bulky. And this is literally all the fabric I have left outside of the border pieces, which won't work, and some tiny little pieces that will serve as appliques and not much else. And I can't really do much else with the dress until the shoulder strap is on, because really all I have to do is edge finish everything. And if you all watched or were in the live stream that was yesterday, you know that I'm really tired and I need to take a break, and I can't take a break until this baby is done. And if you would like to be a part of the next one, we will be doing them monthly. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the little notification bell so you'll be notified not only when I go live, but also when I post polls to figure out what the best time is going to be for everyone to do that. It was a lot of fun. So on that really positive note, I'm gonna go ahead and cut out the strap. Okay, let's get her finished. It just landed like that. But you know, if I had tried to get it to do that, I never would have managed it. With that complete, shall we turn our attention now to the showstopper? I really didn't want to put the entire kit on to fit this thing, but I've been having so many issues with it. Partially because there are no register marks on anything except for the peplum placement, which I have a huge problem with. And secondly, because, well, I'm just frustrated. I can't get it right. I don't know what's wrong with it. It is not quite fitting me the way I would like it to. I took the top down a little bit, about 1/2 inch. It felt like it was choking and pulling up against my neck. And yes, there is going to be a high neck here, but there is a collar piece. So I think that helped a lot. I still keep wanting to tug it down, like it's hitting me at the right spot here. But I think I'm going to extend it just about 1/2 inch from here down just to accommodate my bust because I keep wanting to like and also this side is a little bit loose here and there is supposed to be a tuck. This side it looks okay, but I'm also not even, so I don't know what to do. If I wasn't on a deadline for this, oh y'all, I would be banking this for later, but we gotta make a decision and we've got to make a decision today. So wish me luck. Hopefully we'll figure it out. And the small change of adding extra width at the center front seems to have done the trick, even in my modern undergarments. Let's cut out the lining. Though the extant version only has lining in the back piece, I'm opting to fully line it for durability and a little bit of sweat protection. And because 1/4 inch seam allowances are stupid, I'm adding an additional 1/4 inch all the way around so I have a workable seam allowance. Seriously! I don't care what the extant garment seam allowances are. If you're gonna give it to us that small, just give it to us net. And since I'm using literal scrap linen for this, we're gonna have to piece it just a little bit. Similarly, this ribbed silk taffeta is quite pricey, so I'm going to piece where I can to use as little as possible. It's ASMR time. Snip, snip, snip. Snip, snip, snip. Kapow! There we go. That's the base of the Spencer constructed, all in one easy couple of hours of hand sewing last night. Oh, I love an instant gratification project. Okay, let's go get the collar on. Did I have enough hair canvas to put this together in a single piece? Yes, but why waste it when I could save that for another project and piece it together? The pattern doesn't call for interfacing, but I want to make sure that it has enough structure to stay upright, since that was the style of collar for masculine clothing in this time period, and that's what this Spencer is based off of. So you want to hand stitch it with right sides together, barely catching the interfacing in the seam to reduce bulk. Then put your right sides together with the collar facing, sew the sides, and, in my case, the top since I pieced this together. Attaching the collar is easy peasy. Match the center with the center back of the Spencer and pin to the marks at the front. Mine didn't quite meet those marks, and that's okay. Here's the peplum pleating guide, which is only slightly confusing. The peplum isn't lined, so first we need to edge finish the bottom. In retrospect, dear viewers, I would have lined it like the rest of the Spencer, because it does this odd, sticky outy thing I like not. Does it match? I'm not quite sure that it does. It's kind of off, but that's okay, because it's pretty. Look at all those nice, pretty stitches. Ooh. Now we're supposed to attach the peplum, but it doesn't, I mean, there are no register marks. So I have no idea how. I guess we just match the centers. I mean, that would be logical, right? Match the centers. Oh, look, it's like opposite triangles. Geometry by Jackie. Opposite triangles. For some reason, the fabric I have for the pleats is less than I need for 2 pleats, so I opted to do 1 chonky pleat instead. Time for the facing. Yes, I did consider using interfacing for this bit, but why go through all that effort? You'll want to attach this right sides together before sewing, making sure to leave seam allowance open at the top to turn under on the backside. Thank you to all you fabulous creatures for supporting me over on Lord Kofiton's website. Your continued support means I can continue making this content and bringing you Lady Hammerdown in all her snarky glory. You are my diamonds of the season. Since the bottom hem of the spencer is already turned under inside the facing, I decided to treat the bodice side lining similarly. So we're working on the right side of the fabric first. Turn the front in a scant 1/8 of an inch so the seam isn't visible on the front. This spencer, gentle viewers, is historically adequate, though it's a little early for the Bridgerton period. It suits the early Regency from about 1798 through 1800, a good dozen years before our delightful tale begins. But this is Bridgerton, and it's a historical fantasy, not a strict period piece, so who the heck cares? It's cute AF. With the spencer fully lined, now we can start thinking about the fun part, the trim. So the extant garment that the pattern is based on has a ton of very fine cord sewn along pretty much every edge. That was never going to happen. 1, because I'm not that patient. 2, because I think it looks really messy. And yes, I know it's wibbly because a human being sewed it and that's cool. But me, I like my stuff to look a little crisper. So I bought this 1/4 inch braid to use for the little military detail on the front of the spencer. But I've run into an issue with this stuff. This is a very yellow gold, and it's super sparkly in real life, but it's also way more yellow than the golds I usually purchase, which means not only do I not have anything in my stash as far as buttons go to actually match this braid, but I was also having a difficult time finding buttons that are small enough that are the same kind of yellow gold as the trim. And I've been racking my mind for several days now trying to figure out a way to not spend any more money on this spencer and get it done in time to wear it to my picnic that is in 1 Saturday, like a week and a couple of days. And I just can't come up with anything because there's nothing in my stash. I do have this crochet thread that I could knit buttons in, but it's not quite the right color. It looks pretty good on camera, but in real life, this is much browner than this is. So I could spend the time to knit with very tiny needles and very tiny thread, like 18 buttons that I'm going to hate and take off later, or I could just wait until I find something perfect and just survive with the braid as is. And so I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think this spencer looks pretty darn good as is without any trim, so I think just adding a little bit of trim is going to make it pop enough that we'll be happy with it in the end. So let's go get that done. My bust is much larger than the extant garment, so I'm making the braid longer to make it a little more proportionate. And as our time with the modiste comes to a close, this author would like to reflect on how easy these fabulous pieces were to make. And with only a little bit of time and a little bit of effort, you too could look this good. And if you enjoyed this video, perhaps you would like to peruse this one here, where I actually make this fabulous gown. Thank you so much for watching, dear viewers. Love, Lady Hammerdown.